is Keys to the Shop, episode 137, Essential Books for Your Professional Development, Volume 2. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DiFurio. I'm your host for the show. Thank you for joining me today, and today we're going to be talking about 5 books that I think you should read that would really help your professional development. Way back in, I don't know what episode it was. I think, it's episode 83. Back in April of last year, we did 6 essential books that were what I considered critical for your professional development. Hopefully you have all those read by now. But if you haven't listened to that episode, I would definitely encourage you to do so. Each of these books that I'm going to recommend, they have a different use for different situations in your career. But I happen to think that the ones that I'm recommending are especially important for people working in coffee retail to absorb and put into practice in their careers. So can't wait to get into that with you. Now, Keys to the Shop is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is a leading specialty coffee equipment supplier who curates the best equipment from around the world to fit perfectly with the needs of both their enthusiast and professional customers. Helping you succeed in making great coffee at home or in the shop is what drives them. So if you want to build out a great home bar, or you're expanding your shop and you need new equipment, or if you're going to be starting a shop soon and you're looking to figure out which equipment is right for you, Prima Coffee can definitely help you out. Just go to prima-coffee.com, browse the site, see what they have to offer. It's a lot, and you should definitely reach out to them via email or phone and see how they can help you get the right gear to fit your situation. Again, that's prima-coffee.com. Thank you very much, Prima, for your support of this show. Keys to the Shop is also brought to you by Pacific Foods, the wonderful people behind the Pacific Barista Series line of non-dairy performance beverages. Those are designed specifically for professional baristas and the standards for excellence that they demand. So you could use almond, soy, coconut, rice, or oat milk. Their ability to take the heat from steaming, produce an unmatched, silky texture, and keep the flavor balance focused on the coffee makes this a perfect choice for your cafe's menu. Pacific is a huge supporter of baristas and specialty coffee worldwide, and these products are just a testimony to how thoughtfully they go through the process of creating things for the barista coffee community. So I would encourage you to go to pacificfoods.com and learn more about how the Barista Series line of non-dairy performance beverages can help elevate the non-dairy offerings in your cafe. Thank you so much, Pacific, for your support of Keys to the Shop. All right, so today we are going to be diving into some book recommendations, and I've got 5 of them for you, and they range from things like entrepreneurship, team building, management, and a book dealing with the kind of broad topic of coffee shops. So the first book I want to recommend to you is something called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. This is one of the most important books for operators and would-be owners out there. It is an exploration of common and often fatal assumptions people make when they set out to open businesses, and it details various stages of a business's life and how you can navigate those stages without sabotaging your own success. I literally recommend this book to everybody who tells me that they are an owner or are going to be an owner of a coffee shop. And that pretty much covers all of us, because one day we all want to own a coffee shop, or we do own one right now. This is a book that helps you, as you chase your dreams, kind of embrace the realities around you. So you can basically consider this an audit of your motives of opening a shop, the means by which you're going to open it, and the methods that you use in running it. This is all kind of in an effort to save you from the biggest threat to your success in business, which is yourself, really. So when you become your own boss, this book details what you can expect from that. So I highly recommend it. E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. So next up, we are going to get into the realm of management with a pretty practical book by author Bruce Tulgan. You might remember back in May of 2017, we had on episode 28, was It's Okay to Be the Boss. That's the title of one of Bruce's books. It's, I think, one of the best books, if not the best, on management. And we recommended that in this last book recommendation in April of last year. Now I want to recommend another one of his books, and that is It's Okay to Manage Your Boss. Now, this kind of sounds dangerous right off the bat, especially if you have some element of fear in your boss-employee relationship. We've all been in or currently are in positions where we feel trapped, helpless to change our circumstances because of our bosses. In this book, Bruce kind of pulls from the principles of It's Okay to Be the Boss and applies them to situations where employees are not getting what they need from their leaders. So it gives you steps and concepts that are straightforward, simple, and easy to put into practice. And it's not a book on how to undermine your boss or really stick it to the man or anything like that. Although, from the title, that might be one of your first assumptions. The opposite is actually true, because when you apply these things, not only will you likely get what you need from your boss, but your boss will likely catch on. And as a result, it'll make it better for them and you. So this is a book that is good for everybody. Especially you, if you're in this circumstance, which we've all been there again. And if you're currently in a situation where you feel like you could have some better communication from your manager, or if you're a manager and you feel like you could get some better treatment or resources or communication from the owner of the shop, this is a great book to read. And this book is based not on just the whim of the author and just guessing at what employees need. Bruce and his company, Rainmaker Thinking, have engaged in some of the most in-depth and longest-running studies on employee and management relationships in the workplace worldwide. So the feedback that they get from their questions over the course of decades has fed into the content of all the books that Bruce produces. And this one is no exception. So you can trust that what is going into these chapters is not just a good guess at what might work, it's actually a prescription of what does work. So again, I would recommend this book, It's Okay to Manage Your Boss by Bruce Tulgan. Now, another book that you should get your hands on is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. This is a classic business book, and it's one that breaks down very well the common issues that any group of people face when they come together for a common goal or a task. So that's us. If you have a group of people that work in a coffee shop together, this is something that is definitely relevant. It's structured in a way that it tells a story of these fictional characters. They call it a business fable, and that illustrates through the story 5 things that cause division and dysfunction in teams. So at the end of the story, Patrick takes you through a section called Understanding and Overcoming the Dysfunctions, so that you and your staff can work together to achieve personal and corporate success. So it's nice that the book does that, where some books might leave off with just letting you guess what the moral of the story is. What the author does here is kind of take you through step by step what it looks like to identify these dysfunctions in your staff and in yourself too. And it helps you identify the opposites of what those dysfunctions are and how to apply those things in a way that will ward off the dysfunctions from coming back again. This book is not necessarily just for managers or people in leadership. You can read this book as a barista and figure out which one of the people in the story you are. Their actions and their attitudes and the reactions that they have to problems that come up in the story might mirror your own reactions to something a manager tells you to do or says that you can't do. Oftentimes, I think when reading books like this, we can see other people as the problem, and we like to focus on other people's problems. That itself is kind of a dysfunction. But I would encourage you in reading this and any kind of development book, how do you see yourself reflected in the principles in this book, both positive and negative? What are the good things that you do, and how can you see yourself being part of the problem? Because we are not immune to being part of the problem, although we'd like to think that we're perfect people and we're just victims of circumstance or other people's ineptitude or whatever it is, more often than not, we have a part to play. And that's what being a team is about. It's kind of coming together and realizing that we all have a part to play. And we want to play it well. And so this book will help you do that. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. So now number 4 on the list of books you should be reading, things that I have found very helpful to me and I think will be helpful to you. Going to be like a broken record here. I apologize, but I'm recommending another Bruce Tulgan book. And I know this is like, do you just have a deal with Bruce Tulgan? Do you get kickbacks? No, I don't. I do not. The only kickback I get from Bruce's work, just honestly, is that his books and materials are so effective. The return on the investment of reading them is so significant. This is one I think you should read as a companion to It's Okay to Be the Boss. And it's called The 27 Problems Managers Face. So just from the title, you can tell that you're in for a book that is pretty practical. It's basically a manual for anybody managing, anybody in leadership. You are managing. It doesn't matter if your title says manager or not. You've got to manage yourself, and you've got to manage people. You're a manager. So Bruce takes you through problems, 27 of them, around the big heading topics of being a new manager. You know, this is one of the most fearful things that happens to us as we get promoted. Now we have to be the boss of our peers. We have to stand our ground on standards, and we don't feel very confident. There's a whole host of different problems that fit underneath that heading that Bruce goes through very eloquently and to the point. There's also teaching self-management. This is something where you want to teach people how to be relatively autonomous in their managing themselves to do tasks that you give them, to be responsible without having to have their hand held. There's a lot of things that you could probably fill in the blank for when it comes to teaching employees self-management. Those things are detailed in this book. Also, managing performance of employees. This is a really tricky subject because, based on your performance, you could get a raise and you might not get a raise. And you don't want to be in a position where you're unaware of people's progress or you're unaware of people's lack of progress and you don't have anywhere to go. So you don't want to reward people for bad behavior, and you don't want to just ignore people who are doing fantastic jobs. How do you approach performance as a manager? This book helps you with that, as well as managing problems outside your control. That might be weather. That could be customers and things that they do inside the cafe. Anything that happens where technically it's not in your job description, but it happened anyway, and so now it's your problem. This is also covered in the book. Managing attitudes is another one of those topic headings that has several problems underneath it in this book. And managing attitudes is a really difficult task. It's not as easy as getting somebody to just take the trash out. How do you get somebody to take the trash out with a smile? How do you manage the attitudes of people with complex emotions and goals and this whole team of individuals that you have been given to lead? There's a need to be able to manage the attitudes of your team and help the customers receive great service and great product with good attitudes the whole transaction, the whole experience. So there's a lot covered in the book. I'm not going to go through all 27 problems in this recommendation, but I will say that I'm going to have Bruce back on the show in a month or so, actually, to talk about this book more in depth. So stay tuned for that episode that'll be coming out in the next month or so. And in the meantime, go out and buy this book, The 27 Problems Managers Face by Bruce Tulgan. So the next book I'm going to recommend is not something that's focused on the nuts and bolts of the operation or management and barista craft or anything like that, service. It's more of a broad look at the coffee shop itself. And more than just the coffee shop, it's a look at the third place. It's written by a man named Ray Oldenburg, and it's called The Great Good Place. So Ray Oldenburg is a sociologist, and he coined the term the third place, which means the space between work and home. It's a place that is a public gathering place. It could be a salon, it could be a pub, it could be a coffee shop or a pool hall, whatever it may be. This is the kind of space that brings people together. It's the adhesive, it's the binding agent for a community to gather around and collectively be a community. And this book explores the stories of bookstores, pubs, salons, coffee shops. These are specific case studies of these examples as gathering places and the unique role that they play in the health and vitality of not just the soul of a community, but the soul of the individuals who make up the community as well. This is what our shops are in some respect. No matter how we brand things, no matter how uncomfortable the seats may be to encourage people to, go in and out the doors, or, whether or not you have laptop campers or you have no Wi-Fi at all, no matter what your business model, inevitably you're going to be pulled toward community. You're going to be pulled toward third place by the community, because that's intrinsically what we all kind of need. That need for gathering in a shop or any space is kind of the driver that we need to give thoughtful attention to and embrace as operators, as professionals, and not just skip over it and hope it kind of accidentally happens, but as we design the customer experience, we need to give space for place. We need to give space for people to gather in a third place. That's just my opinion, but spaces like these are dying out. And I think as specialty coffee grows, so too does the opportunity to establish a space where the function of it transcends transaction and does what our last guest on the show, Deb Kaminsky from Pacific Foods, says drives her, nourishes people. We are in the business of meeting people's needs. It's not purely transactional. It's a highly relational business that we're in, and I think this book will give you a really good grasp of the kind of movement that we are a part of, whether we realize it or not. So please read this book. Tap into the deep undercurrent that kind of flows beneath the coffee shop as this community entity. Again, that's The Great Good Place by Ray Oldenburg. So that's what I have for you today. Each book is a world of exploration unto themselves. Number 1 was The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Number 2 was It's Okay to Manage Your Boss by Bruce Tulgan. Next, it was The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Then we went back to Bruce Tulgan to recommend The 27 Problems Managers Face. And finally, The Great Good Place by Ray Oldenburg. I feel like this list of books will definitely open your eyes to some concepts that will help you thrive as a business and as a professional. The reason I'm recommending them to you is because they've done exactly that for me, and I would go back and reread any of them in a second, because that's the kind of books they are. They're things that we need reminding of constantly, and I look forward to hearing from you. If you dive into some of these books and get some benefit from it, definitely let me know. So again, I would encourage you to just keep an open mind when you go to these books. Think of it in terms of how can these books impact the things that I can change, how I act, how I think, how I speak, how I serve. And from there, that ripple effect will change what happens around you. And that's how change is made in an industry. So if you want the show notes for this episode, go to keystotheshop.com, put your email address in the sidebar. You'll be signed up for the newsletter that comes out every couple of weeks or so. And in that newsletter are the show notes for the show. And these books will be there with links, etc. You'll also receive news about Keys to the Shop, upcoming events and speaking engagements, things like that. And of course, I want to encourage you, if you're going to be in New York or are around New York, Coffee Fest is coming to town. Now, that is from March 3rd through the 5th And you can go to coffeefest.com to learn more about that. But there are a ton of great resources to be found at Coffee Fest. It is our industry's most practical trade show for the coffee shop retailer. Tons of great talks and seminars and workshops, competitions. It has it all. So go to coffeefest.com, look up the New York show. I hope to see you there. If you're going to be there, be sure to look for, my shiny bald head bobbing around somewhere on the show floor, and I'd love to shake your hand and say hello. So if you want to reach out to me, you can do so by emailing chris@keystotheshop.com. Any questions, comments, or feedback you have, or inquiries about consulting, that is the email to use. And that's it for today's show. Happy reading. I really hope these books change your life for the better like they have mine. And until next time, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.